I see a box and I want to know what's inside. Is it a present? Is it a ticking time bomb? Or is it just a bundle of wires? It's that curiosity that had me take a screwdriver and turn my first computer into a pile of parts. Just what makes that thing tick? And that's what I'm going to show you today. I'm going to open up a computer and show you the internal components and how they go together. Whether you're someone new who's just wanting to learn a little bit more about what makes a computer tick, or perhaps you're looking to install some new memory, or even assemble your own computer, there's something here for everybody. And you're in good hands with me. I'm a CompTIA certified A+ technician, and I currently work at the IT department at Superior EMP. There's only a few steps that we need to actually get our computer together. We're going to gather all of our supplies, and then we're actually going to do the assembly. The first supply we need is a motherboard. I like to compare a computer to an office building, and the motherboard is like the foundation. This is where everything starts. Everything plugs into the motherboard, whether it be the various components we're using today, or peripherals like a mouse, keyboard, or power supply. The next thing we need is a processor, a central processing unit. This is what actually gets work done in your computer. Now, there's two things that affect how fast a processor runs. The first is the number of cores it has, which is similar to the number of workers you have in an office building. The more workers you have, the more different tasks they can be working on and the faster they can complete them. The other thing that affects how fast a processor runs is the gigahertz. The gigahertz is how fast each one of those individuals can actually complete a task. On top of our processor, we're going to need what's called a heatsink. A heatsink is like the AC in your building. It's what keeps your workers cool and comfortable. If your workers get too hot or the processor gets too hot, it starts slowing down to prevent any damage from happening to it. A lot of times a computer that's running really slow is no more than dust buildup with inside. The next component we need is the memory. The memory is the size of your office building. The more memory you have, the more projects you can be working on at the same time without running into issues. A computer that doesn't have a lot of memory will often access its hard drive a lot, which you can see by the blinking light or even the noise of the hard drive grinding along. It can cause some major slowdowns. There's also a couple tools that we'll need. We'll need something called thermal compound. This ensures that the heatsink is working at peak efficiency and keeping your workers as cool as possible. And we're also going to need a Phillips head screwdriver to complete this assembly. The first thing we're going to do is install the processor, and we start by opening up the socket, which has a clamping mechanism. You simply move the arm to the side, open it up, and then open up the clasp. Now, in a new motherboard, this will oftentimes have a plastic insert in it that you're going to want to remove before actually putting the processor in. Now, the processor, and it's kind of hard to see on the video, has two little offset notches in it that help you align it. It only fits in one direction. You're going to want to align those notches with the two tabs within the socket to make sure it's seated correctly. And then you're going to close the top clamp part and then clamp it back down by moving the arm down and underneath the tab. Next, we're going to install the thermal compound. Now, if your heatsink is brand new, there's oftentimes thermal compound already on it, protected by a plastic sheet that you're just going to want to remove. If you don't have that, we're going to use our own thermal compound here. You don't need a lot, only about as much as an M&M's worth, that you're going to want to evenly coat the top of the processor with. Don't put it on the clamp, that won't help you any. Now, heat sinks, we're going to install the heatsink next, and heat sinks are symmetrical, so its actual orientation doesn't matter much, except I have a really short cord, and you want to make sure that you're able to plug it in after it's in. Now, my plug is on the front right hand sorter from your orientation, so I'm going to orientate my heatsink so that the plug is as close as possible. We are now going to screw it in. Now, you don't want to screw these in too tight because how the heatsink is actually held on there is by spring tension, not by how hard you force the screws. Going too far and really putting a lot of pressure on there won't do anything for you other than possibly damaging the motherboard. Now that we have our heatsink screwed on and in place, we're going to go ahead and plug it in. The plug actually has two fins on it that go along the little plastic tab on the plug, so it only fits easily one way. Once you have that on there, we're done with the heatsink, and there's only one last major component we have to install. So now we're going to install the RAM. which has a little notch in it, which is again offset, so it only goes in one direction. The RAM goes into the long slots on the motherboard that have two tabs that need to be on the outsides in order to install it. We're going to slide it into the tab, wiggle it back and forth, clicking it into place. And that's how you install the RAM. We've now successfully assembled our computer. And it only really took, as I said, a couple steps of, gather all the supplies you need and then assembling it. There's still a lot of mysteries out there, like who is Jack the Ripper? Why are planes and ships lost in the Bermuda Triangle? I can't really help you with that. But I hope that with this short demonstration, I've solved the mystery of just what's inside that box underneath your desk.